The ingredients that you need for beer bread are 3 cups of just regular flour, and you're going to need to sift the flour. It's pretty important that you do the sifting because it changes the texture of the bread. And then 3 teaspoons of baking powder. You can omit the baking powder if you're using self-rising flour, but most people don't have that. A 1/4 cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, and then a 12-ounce can of beer, any kind of beer that you like. This for the loaf bread, I'm actually going to make it with a light beer. I happen to like amber beer myself, so I'm going to make some biscuits later with that. And then 1/2 cup, which is 1 stick of melted butter. And then you just have a mixing bowl and then a loaf pan, and grease up the loaf pan and preheat your oven to 375 degrees. Here's the sifting of the flour and what happens to the consistency. You can see that it gets light and airy. It has a significant impact on the consistency of the bread. If you don't do this, your bread is going to be pretty dense and a lot like a biscuit, but in a bad way. Now combine all the dry ingredients in the beer and then just stir it until it gets lumpy. And here's the stirred up yeasty bread. This is about the consistency that you're looking for. It's sticky and it's still pliable, so there's a lot of gluten in here. And then I'm gonna drop it into my pre-greased loaf pan. Here the process is the same for the amber beer, which I mentioned I'm gonna make for myself. So just combine 12 ounces of any beer that you like, but all of the dry ingredients are the same. I'm finished mixing the dark beer one, and you can see it's very similar to the lighter beer. And I'm going to go ahead and drop these into individual biscuits. Here's the final step. I've taken the 1/2 cup of butter per recipe. I've done 2 recipes here. A 1/4 cup is just fine, so I'm actually just using 1/2 cup for both. And I'm going to brush all of the bread with the butter mixture because I like my bread to be soft on the inside and crunchy on the outside. So that's how it gets crunchy, is a little bit of butter during the baking process. And as you can see, obviously I only have 1 loaf pan, but it's not going to stop me from experimenting and just using what I have, because baking doesn't have to be this big dramatic thing. You can just use what you have and see what the end result is. Unless you're giving it as a gift to the president, I don't think it really matters. So we'll see how these little biscuit things turn out. I have a feeling they're not going to turn out so well. They might all meld together, but we'll see. Place them in a 375-degree oven and bake for 1 hour. Here is the finished product. You can remember in the loaf pan is the lighter beer bread. I'm going to leave it in the pan to cool off. The smaller biscuits turned out well, actually, and then the smaller, darker beer loaf pan worked out as well. I took those out of the glass dish because glass will retain heat a lot longer and it'll continue cooking when it came out of the oven. 3 things happened while I was cooking this. First, I stepped away and stopped paying attention, and I noticed when I came in to check on it that it was baking at 400 degrees. So it got a lot darker along the bottoms. You'll see that a lot of the corners burnt. And then I didn't rotate them because I was distracted. And something else happened. Oh yeah, I tasted one, so there's one missing. So there's how to make a simple beer bread.